This is a review of epidermal cells, the cells that are in the dermis. We said that epidermis, the type of tissue, is stratified squamous epithelium. But we're getting into some of the specific functions of the cells that sit within this layer. Majority of the cells, roughly about 90%, are keratinocytes that make up that keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. So there's 4 types of cells that we're going to cover. Keratinocytes, we said, was the majority of the cells, which makes them the most abundant. What they produce is a protein called keratin. And keratin will fill the cytoplasm to give me some waterproofing and some strength as they come together. Remember, with some desmosomes, we talked about our cellular attachments. Desmosomes we see within the skin. So keratinocytes, the majority of the cells, provide that structural function of waterproofing and strength to give me that barrier and control permeability. So keratinocytes. Melanocytes, another structural cell that's helping defend the ones that are going through mitosis. So melanocytes produce a protein called melanin, and this is where we get the skin tone of our skin, the color of our skin. If I go out into the sun, these melanocytes will help to absorb the UV radiation, because we learned when we talked about cancer that UV radiation can disrupt the DNA machinery, the DNA of the nucleus, and disrupt the homeostatic balance of the cells and could create cancer. So the melanocytes is a pigment, a protein pigment that absorbs it to make sure it doesn't cause any problems. When I go out in the sun too long, I exceed homeostasis and I can get a sunburn. Now, some people have larger melanocytes or more active melanocytes, which changes the skin color. So somebody that has darker skin than me has more active melanocytes. So melanocytes is a protective layer that we see in the deeper layers. So remember, we learned our layers, stratum basale or germinativum and stratum spinosum have these the most because we're protecting the cells that are dividing. When I get to the corneum, these are dead cells. I don't need melanocytes. They're not going to die again. They're already dead. So I see melanocytes at the deeper layers, primarily at stratum basale, our deepest layer of the epidermis. Langerhans cells is a protective layer. We see less of them, but they're called macrophages. A lot of our cells, when it comes to immunity, are going through a process called phagocytosis, which means the cells engulf and eat things that don't belong. So debris, pathogens like bacteria, viruses, parasites, they engulf them to protect us. So our immunity starts with our skin, and it's our first protective barrier. So they help to destroy things that don't belong when we're exposed to something at the surface of our skin. Merkel cells are named after a person that called them Merkel cells, and they are designed for light touch. So I have sensation. We put these cells together that are called Merkel discs, and these Merkel discs help for the sensation of feeling things. So if I was to put on a shirt with a button, or if I grasp something and feel the texture, these Merkel cells help with that. But it's a good way of understanding what I'm coming into contact with, because that's part of my survival and defense. So we see these cells that are specialized in the epidermis. Keratinocytes, the majority of them for protection. Melanocytes protect me from UV radiation from the sun. Langerhans for defense and immunity. And then Merkel cells for light touch.